both in the transport sector as well as the energy. And by the way, if you think about the biggest carbon emitters, I had the mining industry speak earlier on, you think about the biggest carbon emitters, from a South Africa baseline of carbon emissions of about 500 metric tons, you've got about 216 of that is from power generation. And then you have petchems next, which is petrochemicals and chemical companies. And then you've got the transport sector, which is just about 55 metric tons. And that is the third biggest emitter. Mining is incidentally not a big emitter. And why is it not a big emitter? Because we export a lot of it. And it'd be great if we could beneficiate in the country, create new industries, and re-industrialize this country. Because unless we do that, we're going to keep people in poverty, and it's going to be very, very hard to go on this transition because energy will not be affordable. I think there is a recognition that we have to transition. There's a recognition that we've got to transition in the transport sector. But that's a very hard transition sector. And I think, you know, we talk about EVs a lot, but our view is you've got a journey to go to in a market such as Africa. In South Africa, as much as we are big exporters of vehicles, and we'll probably transition into exporting EVs depending on the policy framework, what remains true is that not everybody can afford a new car. So what we have to think about and force ourselves to think about is how do we introduce lower carbon emissions? And this speaks to fuels such as biofuels. We're a big proponent of biofuels, and if you think about South Africa as an industry, it gives us an opportunity to generate new industries, such as biofuels from waste, and trust me, South Africa has got a lot of unmanaged waste. Biofuels from agriculture. It pains all of us to see, you know, what's happening in KZN with the sugar industry. There is room for us to all work together, financing, government policy, private sector, creating new industries where ownership actually sits with empowered people. And it is possible to do that. If I think about currently in our industry as we have it today, which is still liquid fuels, people sometimes get very nervous about BP because we take some very conscious decisions. We took a conscious decision that, look, we have to actually start introducing broader participation in the economy. And we're focusing primarily on women and youth. And we concluded a transaction early last year, so back end of 2021 into early last year, with a company called Vazi. Great group of ladies, black-owned ladies, who are not just equity partners, who own the company, who run it, who employ people, who make decisions. And as companies, we have the responsibility to do the due diligence to ensure that when we talk empowerment, it's empowerment of the organization itself, and not just empowerment on paper. And we signed a 10-year agreement with them to continue to throughput to ensure that they actually break even and get into profit. So it can be done. You don't have to own the whole value chain. And I think I just want to call on private sector to think a little differently about how we can empower entrepreneurs, and we've got great entrepreneurs in this country.
Yeah, I was about to ask in terms of the rural community, what solutions do you see coming forward for them?
Yeah. When you think about renewables, at the moment we talk about, trying to get ESCOM to get into renewables. I actually think that's probably a little unjust, because what happens is you then keep the energy system centralized. I think there's an opportunity now to create new industries by actually getting energy, so cleaner energy, for example. If we now start taking solar panel technology, solar panel farms, getting them into communities where they can actually own it, and we can upskill them to actually know how to work with that technology and contribute to the grid. So a decentralized system, in our view, is much more beneficial than what we have today, which is a monopoly that we're all reliant on, and access becomes an issue because you also don't get it for free. It costs money, hence you get the person that has to collect firewood because they actually don't have access to it. So if we want to bring people and communities along, as we go on this transition, and it must be a just transition, we cannot leave the communities behind. So I think there's an opportunity as we work with all stakeholders to make sure that we bring the energy where it should be, but also, and I don't like to call it job opportunities, it's the meaningful jobs, which is different from job opportunities, to ensure that people can actually start aspiring to have a future. If you think about the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, I mean, we've got a big part of our society still sitting at the lower level of realization. How can we move them all up such that you broaden the middle class and you grow the economy?